Now let's talk about Minuteman. Wes Hall, the founder. Talk about an entrepreneur. But first, Perry, you have longed to move back to Arkansas. How and when did the idea of rekindling the Minuteman brand come about?
So, right as in going back to the earlier segment, so I haven't talked about this before, Kerry, but here I want to be clear about it. After the transition, which was a little bit difficult out of Matchbox, I went down to visit my aunt and uncle in El Dorado, Kay and Eamon Mahoney, the Mahoney clan, which a lot of people, Jody Mahoney, and so they've been involved in Arkansas politics
That's
for a while.
your aunt and uncle?
That's my aunt and uncle.
Okay.
And it was I needed to get back to my roots and back to a safe space. I said, I need to get back down to Arkansas. And so I started to take some trips down here. And whenever I would go visit, I said, I need to go to one place, the last Minuteman. So they would take me over to Minuteman. We would have some burgers. And that's when I met Miss McGugan. And she, God bless her, she blew me off for years. It took so long. And I love her to death, and I talk to her every day. And I said, I would go in there, and she said, "Oh, you're that guy from Maryland." And I say, "You're right." And I said, "I'm back." And she says, you just keep talking to me. And I said, "You're right." And I said, "Because we need to do something together."
You wanted to get back in the food business.
I wanted to do Minuteman because what it meant, it was such a legacy. I went to the Minuteman up the road here on Cantrell with my dad. I went to the one on South University. We went to the one on Broadway. My dad took me there, and I tell this story before, but we begged to go to the McDonald's on Cantrell when it opened. He went there one time, and he said, "We're never coming back." And I said, "Well, yeah, but I thought it was pretty good." And he says, "No." He says, "We're going to go to Minuteman." He said, "That's a real good tasting burger. It's charcoal grilled." He goes, "And besides, it's an Arkansas company." And I always remember him saying that. And I was like, wow. So that always stuck with me. And I always had this very fond memory about Minuteman.
So Wes Hall, in deciding to come back, you went to the University of Arkansas Library and you got out the Wes Hall papers, which I was surprised that they've got those there. And he opened in 1948 on Broadway in downtown Little Rock, Arkansas as a 24-hour coffee shop. 8 years later, he bought out his partners and converted this flagship coffee shop into a quick service restaurant, specializing in the burgers that y'all are talking about. And when it was over with, he had 52 Minuteman restaurants at its peak. But what was interesting in your research is you found out that Wes Hall was the first of many things.
Well, there was so much there. And in fact, all of his papers, they jumped out at me because when I started to do my homework, I saw on the internet, and I said, wait a second. I said, the founder of Minuteman's papers and his corporate documents are all at the University of Arkansas Little Rock. I said, I'm going to go down and look at that. So I sneaked in there, and they looked at me and they said, well, no one has ever asked for this stuff. And I said, let me just take a look at them. So they said, well, what do you want to see? And I said, everything. They started bringing out boxes and boxes of.
So nothing was on film or or scanned?
Some had been scanned, but a lot of it was in paper form.
Wow.
And so the entire history of Minuteman was laid out there. And Wes Hall was very diligent about keeping his records. I saw his old P&Ls. I saw when they went public. And so I'm just sitting there for hours on end by myself in the library looking at this stuff. And they thought I was crazy. They said, no one has ever asked for this stuff. But it was a wealth of information because I saw the entire arc of what happened with Minuteman.
What happened?
Well, long story short, he peaked and he sold to his former CFO in about 1983. It was at the top. He had gone public. He had restaurants all over the place. He had franchises. He had company-owned stores. And what happened was when the CFO took it over, and this is an interesting lesson. We talk about this a lot. He actually did the opposite of what Ray Kroc did at McDonald's. Ray Kroc wanted to be in the real estate business, so he made sure to maintain the real estate portion of it, and then be able to guide or control his franchisees. This gentleman started to sell the restaurants out from underneath his franchisees. He said to them, "You'll either buy them, or I'm selling them." And a lot of people don't know this. The franchisees they couldn't keep up with that. They couldn't pay for the building. They didn't have the money to do that. They couldn't get the loans.
So you'll either buy the property. So his franchise, you'll buy the business, but you'll buy the property.
He wanted them to buy the buildings. He wanted to sell the buildings
And
out
so,
from under them.
and so McDonald's owns all these. I didn't realize that McDonald's owns all this property that you see everywhere. They're like the Catholic Church; they got property everywhere.
That's right.
And then all of their businesses, I guess, pay them rent to.
Yes, that's
like Chick-fil-A. Every single store is company owned.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are some. Again, there are some outlier. With McDonald's, the empire is huge. But essentially what ended up happening was
they had to borrow money.
That's right.
To pay for the property
that they didn't have the money.
And then they had this note payment.
Right.
And they couldn't keep the doors open.
So think of the divergence between an innovator who sees, because we haven't even talked about, the amount of people that are now names you see everywhere that Wes Hall was their inspiration. He even sold them intellectual property. We'll talk about that in a second. So you have an innovator who sees what's possible and creates the conditions for it. Then you have his partner who's a CFO, and you can see where now the thinking from a pure profitability, how do I cash out of this type of thing? But in the process of that, literally killed his own business because the spirit of it, and he ended up putting, think about it, he's putting all this pressure unnecessarily just by virtue of his view of a business model. And so you can see the complete divergence between Wes Hall, the primary guy, and his CFO, and it just marked the end of the business because you didn't keep the innovative spirit alive. You didn't create the conditions. And we talk about leadership. Leaders see possibility in people. They create the conditions for people to grow into a version of themselves they don't see yet.
I've never heard anybody put it so well.
Well, parents do it, right? Parents are leaders because they see things in their kids. And, when we're young, we're like, yeah, whatever. Then one day we wake up and go, there was a lot of wisdom in what my parents told me. That's a version of leadership. But if you think about it in the world, leaders, they look and they see, and the good ones, they spend all their time creating the conditions for you to be and do the things you're capable of. And so what's what Wes Hall did. He created the conditions for other people now to play their game. Their game was, I want to serve people in this thing called hospitality. And the mechanism for it was the Minuteman. When they moved it to you've got to own your building, so they started to take away that sense of possibility and created now a whole series of new problems that clouded it, and it fell in on itself. So there's all kinds of cautionary tales in there about when you look at it in isolation in business, right? You've got an extraordinarily successful business. When you look at it in isolation, this is now, it's never going to work out well. You have to look in the totality. And if you don't see it,
a good manager empowers people.
That's right. And then invite other people also.
It invites other people
that don't think like you do.
That's right. You don't want to have everybody the same at the table. So Wes Hall was really a master marketer. He was the first guy to partner with Coca-Cola to do a signature glass with Coke. What?
Ooh, moment. Get this on tape.
This is a perfect moment. In fact, we it's funny you mentioned this.
Wow.
Because I've been obsessively collecting things like this for Minuteman, and when I find them, I have go on eBay.
There's
this
a
is for
Minuteman.
you. This
No,
is
for me.
From 1972.
Oh my gosh! Thank you.
That is one of the
Minuteman.
original Minuteman glasses, and people. We have a promotion right now for the new restaurant in Jacksonville. If anybody brings that glass in and they show it, they get free soda for life. And so, because Wes Hall was...
I got free soda for life.
Yes, you do.
But, Kerry, he was the first to do this. He was the first.
When is this glass from?
Pardon?
When was this glass?
1972.
Thanks. That's the year I graduated high school.
Perfect. There you go.
All right, go ahead. He was the first.
So he was the first to come up with a lot of things. I mean, he had a lot of intellectual property that in the slogan old-fashioned burgers, he sold that to Wendy's.
Yeah, can you imagine?
He's the first person who came up with a kids meal called the Magic Meal.
Sold it to...
It was Burger Chef and then Burger King. What else did he do?
He was the first to put radar technology.
That's right.
Yep, with Amanda, right? So you talk about that. Look at that, the first. So now we still see the Wendy's out there. They still have old-fashioned burgers, still underneath the sign across America. And that came from Wes Hall right here out of Arkansas.
So I think it's cute. If anybody is under 50 years old, they don't remember the word radar range, but it is what we called the microwave when we were kids.
That's right.
It's a World War II technology and radars, and they started the radar range. And Wes Hall teamed up with Raytheon to receive a microwave oven that he used in his restaurant to warm up his fruit pies. So when you go to Minuteman and you see... what are they called? Radar pies? Deep dish.
They're called radar range pies, but everybody just knows them as radar pies.
Radar deep dish pies. Now,
right.
you know it's because of the radar range, and it would burn your mouth off.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I remember the cherry radar pie. That was what I always ordered at the Cantrell location. But see, Kerry, why I get so excited about it is that everybody talks about strategic partners. Getting a strategic partner or corporate backing or something. from an innovation standpoint in business. You have to understand, Wes Hall did this in the early 1950s. I mean, he started working like late 40s, early 50s. So he was so far out ahead of his time. And that's why I got so enamored with the idea. I said, oh my gosh, he was also the head of the National Restaurant Association.
No.
Oh,
really?
oh, absolutely. So he was.
Is his family still around?
And I met with them.
I figured you did.
They are. Yeah, his daughters are still here in Little Rock, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but I sat down with them and said, this is where we are. This is what we like to do. I'm asking for your blessing.
And they said, sure.
And
Here's
they
Dad's
said,
picture. Put it in every Minuteman.
Well, we came, let's just say we came to an agreement. And I said, what I told them is I said, it's Minuteman. Minuteman belongs to the people of Arkansas. I can't name it, nor will I name it Wes Hall's Minuteman anymore. I can't do that. And so they respected that. I respected their point of view. I said, I can't bring your dad's Minuteman back. I'd like to bring back a heritage brand for Arkansans. That's where we left
And
it.
it's keeping his memory alive. It really is. That's a cool thing.
But for us at Minuteman, the way it came together, we represent three primary things. We're mission-minded, means our vision is to be America's first all-veteran-led franchise hospitality system.
What?
So that's one.
Where is that written anywhere?
No, it is written. You'll see it on the
you
walls.
just got the scoop.
It's
We
all
haven't
coming
talked
out.
about this yet.
We have a new website coming out. We have it. It's about to be plastered on all the walls
The
of the
name
restaurant.
is perfect. The Minuteman.
It is.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Then we're people-powered, which is what we're talking about here, right?
So one, it's going to be all
So
veteran.
mission-minded. America's first all-veteran-led franchise system. Why? We have people that now have innate leadership, like we talked in the hallway. We just can give them the business skills. So instead of giving people talk about give veterans a job, thank you for all those who do that. I'd rather see more become business owners.
That's right.
Business leaders. You know why? We first opened Minuteman. One thing we noticed is we have a bunch of young people now. Schools changed, so we have a big flagpole that you probably noticed when you were there.
Mm-hmm.
We asked them how many understand the history of the flag and how many has ever raised and lowered a flag.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a ceremony every day. They raise the flag. The young people in our store raise the flag every morning,
Oh,
which you should
my
appreciate given your
gosh,
business.
I love this.
So we raise it. We explain the history to it. They lower the flag at night. Second part, people powered. We can talk about Avalon. We've built a leadership program that for our employees. It's called the Citizen Leader Program. So whether you're learning flag, U.S. history, what does a Minuteman represent? That's servant leadership.
Yeah.
So now it's selflessness, and it's teaching us skills to be, how do you connect? What are the skills that really matter in this economy of ours? And then the last part is about being other-centered, right? And so we've got a Currency of Caring program, which promotes charities from the community so people can do a simple transaction. So everything you touch. I want a veteran who's taking their leadership skills and training the next generation. We want to now have something that invests in this generation. And so we're investing in the Citizen Leader Program for our employees. Southwest Airlines is the most successful airline for a reason. They were the first to say the customer isn't the most important. My employee is the most important. Because if I get it right with them, they'll get it right with the customer. We say that, but they were the first to live it. And look what happened with that brand. And last but not least, if we keep our eyes focused on the people around us by now saying everything you touch, and we live in a society, take a look at Tacos for Life around here. They've been very successful. Why? Their tacos are good. It's because you're moved by the pictures of the children you're helping on the wall. Every meal is actually doing something to make a difference in the world. And when you want to talk millennials and young people yearn for that. Mm-hmm. So bottom line, we think Minuteman is what I call patriotism, no nonsense. Get back to what the symbol's about. If somebody was willing to give up their life for an idea called America, that's all it was. Mm-hmm. They were willing to do whatever it took. That was selfless. And that's really what made this country possible. So we just want to get back to those core things in our simple way, except hospitality is a beautiful way to connect people.
I am speechless.
If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture of Kerry's face in the center of the screen. To watch the full-length interview, click the video in the top right. For more interview highlights, click the video in the bottom right. Thank you for watching.